Welcome, everybody, to Friends of Failure. I'm your host, Sam, and this is my co-host, Megan.
Heyo.
I'm really excited to introduce everyone to our guest today, Meshell Baker. How you doing?
I'm absolutely fabulous. Excited to have this conversation with Megan and Sam today.
Yeah, it's great meeting you. I'm really excited for the conversation that we're going to have today. I know it's probably going to have some really great points for people. Maybe they're going to receive the message that they're looking for, right? To help them, understand a different perspective of failure than what is traditionally kind of going around these days, right? But before we start that conversation, I would really love for you to just tell us a little bit about yourself, what you do, what you're about.
Yeah, so well, thank you both for having me here. Again, one of my favorite things to do is to inspire people to live with joy and enthusiasm. So that's my personal mission in life, is to inspire as many people as possible to live with joy and enthusiasm. And the way I get to do that is through speaking and coaching on confidence. And so I'm known as the Chief Confidence Igniter. And what I do is that I go around and I especially work with sales teams, sales leaders, business owners, female founders, and it's all around helping them with that psychology of selling. It's kind of the term I coined and phrase. And it is absolutely around understanding that there is no there. Right. So what most people do in business and in life is think that when I make this sale, when I get this client, when I buy this house, when I get this marriage, when I have this baby, like they're looking at a there. And so when they get it, there's nothing external in a human's life that will give them lasting fulfillment and joy. So that's why failure feels so real, because they keep questing for something that's not lasting, when failure is just meant to guide you to something that's actually meant to be more internally fulfilling. So that's what I basically do, is help people to get in the habit of believing in themselves so that they can just keep going through and experiencing life and it's the fullest of what it's meant to be.
I love
it. Just a little important,
Yeah, I mean, there's so much power in that, right? It's important to have people surrounding you that believe in you, but at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much they believe in you if you don't believe in yourself. And
exactly,
I think we live in a time, and maybe it's been like this since people have been on the planet, right? But I think we live in a time where people don't believe in themselves.
Exactly.
I myself am working on that currently, right? Where it's like, who am I? What am I about? What is that thing, that purpose that is fulfilling to me as a human being? And it's not about, rushing to get to destinations, right? It is about learning how to be good with yourself, right? Have a good relationship with yourself, but also being in the journey, right? And I think failure doesn't seem so bad when you're focused on the now and you're in the journey, right?
Absolutely agree with that. It's circumstances, right? So failure is a circumstance that did not turn out the way that you thought it should have needed to have to turn out. That's all it is, right? So when you're in possession of your own self-worth, your value, your confidence, you're clear on where you're headed, you understand that, again, there's always going to be setbacks, naysayers, critics, doubts, failure, right? You understand that's all part of the process. And you just maybe even pause for a minute and glance, and you keep going, right? Like the power in life comes when you have something greater that is purposeful and meaningful to you than the things that are happening right in front of you and outside of you, with your physical eyes don't have as much power over you. Most people have not given their mind something greater to focus on. So everything in front of them has the power.
I think that's important too, of realizing that the things that have power over us, we gave those things and those people the power over us, right? And it's like, you can take that back. It might be scary, but yeah,
exactly. And I was just recently, and I don't know where the adage comes from, what you resist, you persist. Right. So what happens is most people live a life of they don't want. So ask somebody, like anybody listening to this, and next time you go out, start asking people, what do you really want in life? Watch, they will answer you by either pausing, their eyes dart about, and then they begin to tell you what they don't want. Very few people in life can clearly tell you what it is they do want, or even who they want to be when they grow up. And you're talking to adults, right? So guess what? If all you know is what you don't want, what you resist persists. You create. Every word out of your mouth is creation. You keep creating what if you speak it, and it will seek you. So again, failure is only final if you don't quit, as they told you repeatedly on this podcast. So again, get clear on what you do want, and then you will actually take and experience those things that you don't want as just targets, moving targets. Oh, if I don't want this, well, this is telling me to get clear on what I do want. That's all.
Right. Yeah.
Right. This person who is like, people like to spend so much time talking about what somebody meant. Like, I'm at that person now when people come say, they have a problem with a person, and I'm known, Meshell can turn anything into a positive. So they walk up to me and I go, oh, Meshell, I'm dealing with this person and they're awful. And I'm like, oh my God, what happened? Well, they said this and I was like, so, okay, let them finish. So did you ask them what they meant? Well, no, I know what they meant. Time. Average human being has anywhere from 20 to 80,000 thoughts in a day. You don't even know all the thoughts you have. So it's impossible for you to know what anybody else was thinking. Therefore, you cannot know exactly what they meant. Did you ask them? If you haven't asked them, then this conversation is gossip, and I don't partake of gossip.
And I think that's a perfect takeaway, because assuming other people's intent, even their feelings, is going to lead you to failure right away. Because like you said,
immediately,
you can't just go,
express route.
He's mad at me, or, oh, he's not being, nice. And in his head, he's like, oh, that went really well. So
exactly, that clarity. And it's so interesting when you go ask people and then follow up and take a deeper dive. Well, why didn't you, when you felt like that conversation was not going well, why didn't you just say, oh, okay, maybe I misunderstood you. What did you mean? We are not taught as a humanity how to address feelings of uncomfort. We love to just go talk to, ask how many people who have a problem with a person, if they actually went and talk to the person. Probably not. They're talking to everybody else except the person they have a problem with.
Yep. I mean, when I was younger, I can look back and I can admit that was me. But, so when you really start changing, so if you change the way you think or change your mind, you change your life, you change your reality. And
yes.
When you really start looking into that, you start to have realizations of, the easy one here would be like, we have misconceptions of what is failure. And so failure is the, I wasn't successful, and then, you quit. Failure can be thought of as something to be afraid of, or it can be something that is a tool that's going to make you better so you can achieve what you're trying to do. The other part of that would be fear. That I wish I could remember her name, but she did it was like a TED Talk kind of situation, but she was talking about what she did to overcome fear and how she helps people overcome fear. And it's literally changing the way you think about it. Fear has the same exact feeling as excitement. Your brain decides if it's negative or positive.
Yes.
And I remember listening to her and being like, you're 100% right. Why didn't I think of this? Right? Why didn't I acknowledge that excitement feels the same way? It's that like high alert kind of, oh, like this is important, something's happening. But you can be grateful for it, you can find a positivity in it, or you can, be afraid, and sometimes that's crippling. You know what I mean? Like it'll allow you to hold yourself back. I've used fear so many times in the past as an excuse, right? Like fear was in the way, as if like I had no control over it, right? And don't get me wrong, like I think that's another thing where we get taught, you shouldn't be afraid, right? Like it shows weakness, but being afraid of something can sometimes be a message, right? Like, man, I'm afraid to deal with, that thing that bothers me in the back of my head, or I'm afraid to deal with confrontation. That's another thing that I think people think confrontation's a negative thing. It doesn't have to be, right? Like if you and I have a problem, I'm like, hey, look, like, what did you mean? I'm trying to get clarity. That's not a bad thing. It's going to be uncomfortable still, but you know what I'm saying? Confrontation doesn't equal bad.
No, it absolutely doesn't. For anybody listening now, I'm neck rolling at Sam, because I'm like, how dare he talk about he confronting me, right? But absolutely, it is. I know exactly, but it's not a bad thing. It's how, when you go talk to people who've had lasting relationships and they still like each other, right? I had an aunt and uncle who I adored, married 50 something years, and she would walk in the room and he would still lean back and be like, right? And I was like, oh, ew, right? That kind of, but when you ask them about the relationship, they didn't argue, right? They went to solution. It was always, okay, the reason we are here challenged right now is because we don't agree. And because we don't agree, we are not seeing things the same, which is causing an emotion of us. And in order for us to go to bed and not argue, we either decide that we'll talk about it tomorrow, or we have a conversation about solution. Because it doesn't mean that we need to agree. And what is the result we want to create for our children, for our family, for our legacy? So let's go to solution, and then we can navigate that. We both decide and agree that we're going to solve this. Now we have somewhere to go. Remember I said the reason people get stuck is because they just sit there and talk about what they feel, instead of going, okay, the feelings, acknowledge that something needs to change. There's something different required.
100%. I know that we don't get taught this stuff in school, right? They don't sit us down and go, hey, when you're pursuing relationships, you should probably not take your advice from, a sitcom or like a teen drama on WB or whatever. Not that you can't enjoy the entertainment, but
really, no, I can't do that.
Yeah.
Are you sure, Sam?
I mean, you can do whatever you want, right?
But
but you're gonna have a bad time, because it's really interesting when you start exploring the versions of reality that you can experience by, again, it's all in your mind and the perspective that you're shaping. I mean, there are obviously things that happen to you that you can't control, but you can control how you try to handle it, right? And sometimes we're not equipped, and we have to fail several times before we really develop a skill set, right? So one thing I wanted to ask you is, you help people in the corporate setting. I know you help people in general, right? Like you have that vibe. You're a person that likes to help people, right? So one of the things that you mentioned you do for people is kind of help them get started on the path of learning how to embrace failure, right? And yes. I know that part of that's got to be having the mind shift of failure as a tool, right? It's not like a label, which I think is where things get kind of confused, right? How do you begin that process with a person? I mean, I'm assuming you have to kind of evaluate where they're at in terms of how they think about failure first, right?
Absolutely. Great question. And thank you for asking it. So it depends on if it's an individual or team, or people I'm working with. Sometimes it's with leadership, within an organization. So that will, of course, dependent on that, we'll have some assessment tools. But the overall goal is to see where you are and where you want to be. So we create point A and point B always. And then once you see where you want to be, then we unwrap that and get that clear as possible. So just because you say that's where you want to be, is it because that's yours? Is that because it's true for you? Did you get that from somewhere else? Was it encoded? Our personality is locked in by the time we're 7, 8 years old. So are you dragging this along from something somebody told you thought the need, the ought to, should be? Right? Is this, something based off of a relationship you had? Now you're going to prove to them you're still going to be successful. So again, getting that clarity that it's yours, you own it. And as an organization, the leaders or the founders of that organization, what is, you go to Simon Sinek, start with why, right? Why is this relevant and important and meaningful? Because the whole point is creating a life or a business that's amazing. And amazing is not easy work. And amazing requires a lot of work on the back end, and you will not stick with it if it's not yours. You will not stay the course if it's not yours, if you don't fully own it. And if it's not yours, also someone else from external can take it away from you by pointing out its flaws, by shaming. They can break it down. But when you have generated that drive or that clarity for what you want to create from within, and you truly learn how to own it, then nobody can take it from you. Right. Again, so that's what we do, is we start there, and then we go about establishing the habit of believing. Right. So that's, again, I tell people my mastery is I can help anybody create the habit of believing. Because think about it. Once you believe in yourself, can I tell you, you can't?
No.
Because it would just be irrational for me to approach you and tell you you can't do something once you believe. You truly understand that you have aligned with God, universe, divine, Buddha, Allah, the source, to create whatever you want to call it. You are in alignment with that is greater than any person on this planet, and anyone who's not for you gots to go. Bye, Felicia.
That's
right? They are just mere flesh and blood mortals. And you have been given a call, a quest, a purpose that ignites you. You can't stop thinking about it. You wake up and them Cheerios taste better today because you know, right? So again, that's the work that I do. That's my mastery. It's my gift. I used to be scared to tell people because I was like, this is ridiculous. I was like embarrassed to tell people that, because I was raised in an environment, and I tell people I was raised by people who are, my dad picked cotton. My mom was raised colored only. They were both raised in Louisiana, where they saw colored only on my birth certificate. It's a historical document. My mother, me, and my father all colored, COLORED, right? Wow. So I was raised to be quiet, and I was raised to be not seen and not heard. So to do this is counter to my nature. And until I sat down and defined who I was going to be, what my legacy is in this life, I couldn't do these interviews because I felt disingenuous. It was counter to what my feelings were creating inside of me. And then now aligning those feelings to my purpose, it makes it fun. And even when I don't do it well, when someone says no, or I make a mistake, or I don't get the gig, right? All that stuff that used to feel like failure, it's just like, just wasn't my person, wasn't my gig, wasn't my client. Keep going.
Yeah,
right.
But without that clarity, it will destroy you.
And it sounds like clarity is like the first part of it. And then the second part, at least for you, and I'm sure other people, is removing limitations that are put on you by society, family, whatever it is. Once you get past that, does it feel kind of like the sky's the limit? You can go anywhere.
Yes, it does. You begin to understand that it's not just a feeling, it is a reality, right? Yeah. That the sky is the limit. We get to create. Thoughts become things. Without a thought is spontaneous combustion. So everything on this planet, for the most part, is a thought. Someone thought it up. So you have the same great brain matter that every human being has been given and gifted with. We just don't access it because we're so bound by our limitations of what we think we should, need to, have to, ought to. And so my work is helping people to understand that they are unlimited in who they are when they align with something greater than them, because now you don't have to worry, right? Now you're not trying to figure it out or fix it or do it. You're just moving forward with the understanding that if somebody says no, it's not a big deal. There's limited pots. There's always only one problem. We can only focus on one thing at a time as a human being. There's infinite possibility of an outcome, infinite. But we're so far, we talk about the problem. We talk about what they didn't do, what they didn't say, like how unfair it was. And I should have got that. And this is so, again, you create with your words. What are you talking about?
I bring this up all the time. So I had a mentor who, we were talking, and one day he goes, hey, have you ever read the 4 Agreements? And yeah. So I was like, I haven't. And I was like, actually, I think I have it on my bookshelf. And he was like, hey, you should really, like, I don't enjoy sitting down and reading. So I'm very grateful for like Audible and being able to listen to books now. Right. So So he checks up later, a couple of weeks. Hey, did you ever check out that book, The Four Agreements? I was like, oh man. So I took the physical copy that I had. I honestly don't know where I got that book. And I thought I knew. And then I asked the person and they were like, I didn't give you that. It fell from the sky. I don't know, but I put it on my desk, right? Some time goes by and I mean, I'm looking at it every day. Third time he goes, hey, did you read that book yet? And I was like, all right, look, I'm going to download it because I know I'm not going to physically read it. I'm going to download it right now and I'm going to listen to it. I listened to that book and I ended up listening to it basically twice in a row. It's a very short book. And, you know, it's one of those things that it opens your mind, right? So that you have the ability to realize that it seems so simple, but you don't think about it right. And so one of the things is the things that you say are one of two things. It's either going to be a blessing or it's going to be a curse. And you get to decide. And I realized that I would spew, you know, curses because I'd be upset and I was dealing with turbulence on the inside, didn't know how to deal with it. And so I was just projecting it, right? Well, once I took responsibility for that, I stopped letting people who were projecting their things affect me so much, right? It's not me that they're upset with, or it's not me that they're relying to be happy, right? But I do think that that's really important, that thoughts are real. They are very much tangible things, and they have an effect. No matter how simple it seems, every time, even if you think you're joking, every time you talk negatively about yourself, there's a part of you inside that's going, all right, well, I guess that's got to be true, right? The subconscious, one way that somebody described it was your conscious thoughts are programs that you're writing, and then the subconscious is utilizing that programming.
Yes.
And
yes,
it's kind of scary because then you really start to realize that it is limitless and you are very, very powerful as a being. And then you want to be like, well, I don't want to be responsible for that, right? Like, I don't, like, if I'm having a bad day, I don't want to be like cursing everybody, but I think it's the truth, you know?
Yes. So, yes. So going back to, right, so she said clarity was the first thing. Then we work on pretty much it's consistency. So what happens is the unconscious mind, so I call it the chicken-a-doodle in your head, like when I'm on stage, you know, that chicken-a-doodle, you know, the one that has been chatting at you the whole time on stage, like, oh my God, she looks different than her picture. She's a bit fluffy, isn't she? Oh, I've heard somebody else say this. Oh my God, I got an email I need to answer. I haven't answered yet. Oh, what am I going to have for dinner? You know, that one, that voice in your head that goes all day long, right? That one. So that one, until you get that thing to be on your side, life will always be a struggle, period. Well that said. Voice is meant to support us, to empower, encourage, and ignite us. It's not going to be 100% because we are reptilian brain, negative by nature. And for the most part, you can turn that voice around. So for most of the day and most of the rest of your life, it will support you. But it requires conditioning. And the thing about it is that it requires daily conditioning. And remember, we're not in control. This is data, statistical evidence has shown 90% of our decision-making is on autopilot. It comes from the unconscious. Mm-hmm. So it's always the imprint of who you are. So that means in order to change your feelings about failure, you've got to go re-imprint the unconscious. Okay, and so when I say that, and I ask people, do you know what that means? And most people don't know. I do. Right? That's the work the background and the work that I've done, and, you know, going about it in a manner and helping people to create it. Yeah. Man. And if you go look, top performers, one of the things they have is they have bar none routines. And they pretty much all have morning routines. If you don't master your morning, you will not slay your day.
I love it.
It's not going to happen.
I did have a question pop into my head while you were just talking. I'm sure there's been plenty of times, maybe not plenty, because usually if people are utilizing you to learn and grow, they have an idea of what you do, right? But there has to be people who maybe push back, right? Like they're like, nah, that no way, right? Or like it could just be sometimes it takes time to understand, right? You got to sleep on it, right? But have you had that during like your career where you got that pushback and you had to help them kind of navigate to a place where they could receive it, the information that you talk about?
Yes. Yeah. So you're talking about clients that are already, in the process of working with me, and midstream, they start to push back a little bit.
Sure. Or even just the initial conversation, right? Where you're like the subconscious and the consciousness, right? Where they're like, what? Because some people, they've never heard this conversation, right?
Yes, never. Absolutely.
I just can't imagine what it would be like trying to calmly and kindly navigate someone from that headspace of like resistance of what we talk about. I mean, it's the truth, right?
Yes. So I won't say I don't. So what I actually do is, people generally want to work with me. They've already heard me speak, or they've been referred to me. I rarely have someone like a cold person wanting to communicate with me who has no concept of either it's something that they want or me. So they're already ignited. That's why they're in front of me. Right. So like one of the questions I ask people is like, when you scheduled the call, what did you think Meshell could do for you? Like, right. And that's what we work on. That generally becomes the target that we will then launch and create, and I'll get them on a path to creating that. The other thing is that generally my talks. So when I do talks in those, like 2-hour workshops or interactive workshops with organizations, right? So as of late, I've changed the way, restructured my business. So when people are hesitant, I said, bring me in for a talk, bring me in for a 2-hour workshop, and in front of your entire team or your company. Once I'm finished, ask them if they want me to come back. If they say yes, yes. If they say no, no, I'm fine. That's the challenge I put.
There you go.
Right. And so I like tell people, I'm not scared. Right? I know I'm good at what I do. Right. I'm amazing at what I do. In the last organization, it was unanimous. Everyone was like, they were like, so what do you want? Do you want her to train the leaders, or do you want this workshop, this, half-a-day workshop for the entire organization? They were like, we want both. And the executive director said, okay. So that's the space that I've decided that I want to exist in. I'm like, I'm tired of, I'm differentiating myself in that I want people to be transformed. I want to give people deliver tools so that once they have heard me, they believe that they can.
Because they're seeing the
doubt part does not exist after connecting or hearing me. That's gone. You are clear that you are accountable for what it is you want, and you're also hungry to move in that direction.
And that's you showing you're already ignited, like you've already done what you're talking about. So it's a sales pitch in itself of just being who you are. I think kind of the follow-up question, everyone knows habits are hard to form. So how do you kind of get
hardest thing for an adult human to do is establish a new habit.
And
hardest thing.
It's really kind of prime territory for failure. So how do you talk people through, like, it's okay to not be perfect at it, or you only need to be 80% there? How do you get them in that mindset?
So, well, one, let's begin with the fact that since it is very, very almost impossible to get an adult human to establish and maintain and sustain a new habit, I work with people. That's why the first part is clarity. Why do you want to do this? Because if your reasons are not more than the results, you're going to fail. That's an assurity. Because remember, your mind is in control. You're not. And your mind is a master at excuses, justifications, and alibis. If it wasn't, we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. You'd already have what you want. Okay, so let's start with that, right? So you are not as smart. The conscious part of you always thinks it's smart, but it's not. It's the unconscious that's smart, right? Because it's relentless, it's persistent. The unconscious does not get stopped by emotion, does not get stopped by what they said or didn't say. That's the conscious that your ego gets in the way of your capacity, your capability, your unlimited capability. And what successful and wealthy people do better than anyone is they hire for habit. not for results, because they know once they get the habit, they will create the results and keep the results. Once it's a habit, you can't not do it. So going back, how do you help someone create habits? You have to understand why it's important to them. And you have to speak to that to them. And you have to help them understand how hard it's going to be. People, oh, yeah, I can do this in 6 weeks. And I don't tell those lies. I tell people I work with, this is going to be the hardest thing you ever did. Yeah, you looking at Meshell, you loving on Meshell, you smiling at Meshell, you're going to hate Meshell about 3 weeks. Right? If he's a personal trainer, right, there's going to be days you're going to be cussing my name. And the one thing I promise you is that if you stick with it, if you're honest, right? If you are very honest at the beginning, so we can uncover the truths that are necessary for you to build this, you will be more happy with yourself than you've ever been with in your entire life. I promise you that. That's the problem, because it's not me making the promise. The universal law of increase is that whatever you water and nurture, you will have it will succeed. You'll grow, it'll grow. So all I'm doing is helping you to create something and teach you how to nurture it so you can always have that bumper crop. I'm a harvest, not a hunter. I teach people how to harvest, not to hunt. And that's what happens. Most people are hunting. They're grasping and grabbing and trying to succeed instead of making it this process where it just expands. We expand. We're either expanding or contracting, right? There is no middle in our lives. That's what this fallacy, right? There is no stopping. Life keeps going. So if you have stopped, then you're actually losing because life is moving forward. So you're not expanding, so you're contracting. Grow or die, period.
Grow or die. I like that.
On a t-shirt, yeah.
No, I know, right? That's mine.
Because I realized a few years ago how important it was for individuals like yourself to exist. And, you know, more and more people are opening their eyes to someone said it during a talk one time where we convince ourselves, kind of like you were saying before, maybe it's the ego, but we convince ourselves of, all right, I'm going to figure it out. Once I figure it out, everything's going to fall into place. And it's like that thing that you think you're going to figure it out. If you knew how to do it, or you were going to do it, it would have happened by now. You don't know how to do it, and you have to go find someone to help you do it. And I was like, well, all right, just eat a little piece of humble pie there, because it's like you think about it, you're like, all right, there's this thing I was going to do, and I keep saying I'm going to do it and figure it out and blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I haven't ever done it. And then they're like, it's because you don't know how. Like you're not going to be able to do it until someone teaches you or shows you the way, per se. And then you kind of have to accept it, because when you hear the truth, you know it. You know, the truth is something that whether you believe in it or not, it's going to exist, right? If it's a lie, it relies on you to believe that it's true, right? But truth is just going to be there regardless of your belief.
And you can only avoid it so long too. And I'm sure, have you ever had a scenario where a client starts with one intent or driver, and then they go, actually, wait, it's not that. We need to pivot to this. Yeah. Yes.
It does that. Yeah, because we do the work of clarifying. And I'm like, I was talking to somebody the other day, they forgot, they had a call and they came and they were like 45 minutes late and they were like so apologetic. I was like, time, I need your energy to change, because for us to have a good outcome, you can't drag in your regret. So just understand, I am the most gracious, kind person you'll ever meet. Why? Because I've intentionally set out to be that way, because I need people's energy. That's what we create from. Energy is just emotion, is time, right? So yes, I get people all the time, once they start to understand the power they have and what it means, right, when they're moving in a direction, they will change those directions to something that's more meaningful for them, because we forget the most precious and limited commodity we have is time. It's the great equalizer of mankind, right? We all get that same amount, that same exact 24 hours, 1,440 minutes, 86,400 seconds. And the way you burn time is your emotions, right? Wherever those thoughts go, your energy flows. So you are burning it. And if you listen to people, especially yourself, what are you talking about most often? Because the only time we ever have is what?
Now.
The present.
Yeah.
Now, right now. But most people are talking about the past or the future. When I think what I need to have to, ought to, should do, or what I didn't do. They're rarely present. You see them there on their phones, they're looking all over, they're trying to figure out what they got to do next, and rarely are they present. And that's the power. That's where you get to create. That's where your outcomes and all of that happens. Your decisions, like when you're oh, I got to call this person because I forgot to call them. Stop and just sit still and ask yourself, what is it that would help me to move forward in my business? What is it that would help me to move forward in my relationship? Just let yourself answer, and you'll be surprised. Often it's not what you think you have to need, the ought to, should do. And start doing those things, and you'll be amazed at how your life turns around. I get called, like, I get the reminders like, oh my God, I didn't send that proposal. And then I freak out because now you're like, what's the first thing? Embarrassment, shame. Yeah. And then I go like, thank you, universe. I go send a proposal. Yeah. Right? Because right. If it was meant to be a shame, universe, God, whatever you want to call it, loves you, loves us all, adores us. So the reason you remember things is not to make you feel bad, it's so that you can make a decision to move forward with it. But we are conditioned to what? Feel bad because we forgot it. You didn't forget it. If you'd have forgot it, you wouldn't be thinking about it.
Yeah, it's the whole, someone had asked the question of, how do I deal with shame? And the person was like, shame is just, it's a feeling that's telling you like, this is something you need to deal with. You need to process it. You need to heal from it. You need to figure it out. I entered a place in my life where, we're all kind of delusional, right? In some ways, until we go, wait a minute, I'm delusional, and you start working on it, right? But the thing that I started to seek was being able to be brutally honest with myself, like have the capacity to be sitting there and go, wait a second, like it doesn't have to be a good thing. It doesn't have to be a bad thing. It just needs to be honesty. And being able to just unapologetically be honest with myself, and you're more authentic and honest with other people if you can do that with yourself.
Yes,
I think for me, it really became important to be honest with myself because everyone will tell you that, right? And it's, you have to know why you're doing what you're doing. And there are people that sometimes they think they know their why, and if they dig deep enough, they realize it was imposed on them from whatever. I don't think that was really my case. I never understood how to dig deep enough to really go, this is why you do what you do. And I had heard recently, someone probably quoted it, but it was you have two lives. You have your life that you live, and then you have the second life, which is why you're doing what you're doing. And when you get to that point that you genuinely know what your why is, I'm not saying it's easy to get up in the morning, right? But you have a reason. So it's easier to force yourself to get up in the morning, right? It's easier to force yourself to go that extra mile. And I mean, exactly to your point, right? I'm just reiterating what you said before, but there are going to be moments that life is going to sit some really heavy things in front of you, obstacles, you name it, it's going to come, right? And all it is just an opportunity, like you said, with the whole thanks universe, I remembered, right? It's an opportunity where I don't have to make it a negative thing. I don't have to feel bad. And so some of these obstacles, they're meant to knock you down so you can practice getting back up. And whenever you have that why, it makes getting back up
a little easier. Yeah.
Doable for sure. Yeah. Right. Because I can tell you plenty of times where I didn't know what the why was. I got smacked in the face and was like, well, I'm not going that direction. And I would just turn around and go, let's see what happens. And now I'm developing that sense of, you're not going to move me. This is what I am doing. It is a decision that has been made.
Yes, I love that. That's one of my clients had a phrase that I kind of coined because I love the way it impacted. And she's like, this is the hill I die on. And I was like, ooh, I'm going to, and she said, I don't need to say her. I said, I can reference you and say your name. She's like, no, you don't have to say my name. But yes, I love that when it gets that clear, that, you're immovable, you're immovable, unconquerable. I just do a weekly tip for the sales podcast, and they do every day. He does this 5 minutes, and I actually read the Invictus quote, and I don't know if you're familiar with that, but it says in there at the end, I'm the master. Basically, I'm the master of my soul, right? And so that's what you're reminding me of right now. That, like I said, I've been having that confirmation all day long.
Yeah.
I love it.
Right, it's the theme, right? So it's very interesting that you brought that up as well. So I'm curious to ask you, what is your why?
Ooh, that's big.
I asked him this the other day, and he was like, "Ooh."
It's all right. So my ultimate why is, I think I've always known there's a system in place that is meant to keep humanity from ascending, right? I didn't understand any of that until maybe as of recently, because I actually started trying to define, what I've always felt. And I have a very vivid imagination. So there's a lot of like metaphors going on in my head, but they're like little movies, right? And so ultimately what it boils down to is, I think the why that makes me an object that won't be moved, right? I'm going in this direction, right? I am a force that will not be stopped. It's my mom and my brother. So these two people, there's huge significance in my life, and so the goal that I have for myself involves them, right? Of creating freedom, not only financially, right, but also of controlling our minds, understanding our spirits, right, and being genuinely free in a place that if you're not making the choices and understanding what you believe in and what you're about, something else will decide that for you. And as we grow, that's my whole thing, right? It's like, I want to create freedom. And I want it for myself, but definitely for them as well. And so if I'm having one of those days where I'm like, I don't really care about me, I can rely on part of that why is it's not just about me, right? So there's a lot of significance there. There's a ton that goes, behind that, but that's the why. It's my mom and my brother.
I love that. Yeah.
Yeah. And
thank you for sharing that. Yes.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it's about, I could have probably said that 10 years ago, but it wouldn't have meant the same thing that it means now, right? Because there's actually a vision in place, and there's a rhyme and a reason to it now. You know what I mean? Like there's a purpose that I feel versus, oh, I love my mom and my brother, well, right?
There's more depth, like you further understand.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to go all the way down and deep down in there, and had to kind of sit with it for a while to really kind of figure out what was it and why was it that particular thing, right? Why is it them? And when you actually take the time to define these things instead of being like, I don't know, it can be kind of heavy, but it's very uplifting. It's very empowering. And, again, it makes you unconquerable, because you smack me down all day long, I'm going to get back up.
Yeah.
Like I know this is fact now, right? It's a part of my truth, where before it was like, man, if you hit me hard enough, I don't know if I'll get up. What if you knock me out? Am I gonna, but I would love to.
I always tell people, if you knock, in order for me to stay down, you got to literally kill me. You'd have to kill me for me to stay down.
Right.
Because I just don't know. Like, yeah, I'm at that point where I just, yeah, as long as I have breath in my body, this is my quest.
Yeah.
And that is to free. I basically, I'm out here giving out blue pills or whatever. I forget the color of the pill, right? As many as possible, because we live in a society where, you know, information is free, but people have not been, and they're not even inspired. You know, we in order for people to consume, like one of the things, and I'll just back up and say, one of the things that I've seen the thread of my business is, especially women that I work with, as soon as they get to a certain point and they're on, you know, the work we do, their spending declines greatly because they're not trying to fill the hole from the outside, right? They've started to work on doing things that fill them on the inside. And they really start to make more conscious choices about how they're communicating with their spouse, their family, their children, at work, and you know, they really, the confidence that that is created. And it's like, if it's leaders, it's the same. They become more authentic, they're more vulnerable, right? Because, and it's contagious, right? What I teach people is that anything you do in life for yourself, if you do it for yourself, you take it with you. Right? If you brag about all of these qualities you have, if the people closest to you aren't benefiting, what good is it? I'm not impressed. Yeah. Right? So that's the whole, we're tapestry. So it's like, once you're confident, people should feel better having been with you, because you're giving them some of your confidence. It's not like, and it's so intentional that they don't even know until they're later. Like, once they have, you know, away from you, or someone asks them like, oh, I was hanging out with Sam. Oh my God, Sam. Oh God, he's so amazing. And they can't even almost verbalize why, but it's because you have become so, you know, confident in a manner that is, I call it contagious, right? It's that your intent is not that it's just for you. Your intent is more, it's more of a humanitarian reason. Because I know that when I do well for myself, I'm able to help more people, right? If I set out to help more people, I actually can't help as many as I would like to once I've taken care of myself.
Yeah, I mean, I'll be frank. I mean, I had a moment where, you know, I'm diving into these things that we're talking about, and there was a little bit of success. Like I was able to tell that I was having some growth, but, you know, I wasn't like, well, I had some growth, I did it. It was like, okay, I can do it. Let's keep doing this. And, you know, it gets a little more difficult depending on what you have to deal with on the inside. But I noticed that it was affecting the people that I loved in a good way, because even though there were moments that, you know, like for instance, I was like, hey, I had heard it a long time ago, but then I just really started to like receive it, I guess, where it was like, if you can't love yourself and you can't keep growing that love for yourself, how are you able to love anyone else? And I got to a point, I had to ask myself that question of, I was like, do I love myself at all? And then I was like, if the answer is no, then it's like, do I love any of the people that I genuinely, you know, they're my ride or dies, right? They're my family. I care about them. And it's like, am I even able to love them if I can't love myself? And I mean, that's a heavy thing, right? To be able to sit there and try to confront the, how do I really feel about myself and why? But it gets easier and easier because you realize that it makes you better, like in your day to day and the way you're functioning in your thoughts. But more importantly, it is making other people better. You're rubbing off and sharing that vibration, right? The what is that whole thing? Like energy is emotion, and or it's emotion in motion. I'm messing it up. It's something like that.
I don't remember exactly. I know that motion precedes emotion. So like what happens is when people feel bad, right, and they get frozen, it's moving that direction anyway, because your emotions catch up. They're always a little bit behind, especially when you're attempting to change the way you respond to certain emotions. right? And one of the things I teach people is that your body, unless you've intentionally done the work, your body holds the history of the emotion. So if you want a different future, whenever you keep saying, I feel, and you're making decisions off of what you feel, if you have not actively worked out what you feel, then your feeling and your decision keep taking you back to the past. And I'll say that, and I say that on stage, and people will just, I've had people in the middle of my talk keynotes go, wait, she needs to repeat that.
And the irony is, like, you're repeating. There's a thing I keep on my fridge. It's your choice is to evolve or repeat. That's all it is.
Yes.
Two options.
Yes.
You're either going to keep doing the same thing or you're going to grow.
Yeah. So that I would hear that, and I would hear it, but I couldn't apply it. My choice. Okay, great. My choice. So what does that mean? Right. So that was me. Like I tell people, I was the person that I would hear all these things and I kept repeating, and I was just like, what's wrong with me? And then it was the work to realize there's nothing wrong with me. You're just not hearing it the way you need to hear it. For you, you're a unique individual. So then it became my quest to, God, universe, creator, was send me the people who can talk to me the way I need to hear. So if I'm talking to you and I'm looking to hire you or work with you and you're not making it clear for me, right? You ain't hired.
Right.
It's just like, and there's nothing, that doesn't mean you're not amazing at what you do. It doesn't mean you're not incredible at what you do. It just means that if we can't even have this initial conversation without me asking you 90 questions, then it's not a lock. It's going to be frustrating when we actually start doing the work and I'm paying you, because now I'm wanting results, but we can't understand each other, right? And that's what people forget, right? And I also look for people who love what they do, because whatever we create is going to be for my clients, and my clients don't get nothing but love from Meshell, right? So if I work with you and you're just good at what you do, you make very different decisions than someone who loves what they do, right? Someone who's good at what they do cuts the lights out at 4:59. Right? Someone who loves what they do, like people got to come say, can you come get something to eat? Right? Can I help? Like they're so passionate, other people come help them or bring them food, or you understand? It's a very different life. And I was listening to, Viola Davis. And she was talking about like why, someone's asking her career, how she was able to do what she did. And she was like, if you understand the statistics of any profession, there's always only a handful who exceed to the highest of levels, right? And actors, only less than 1% of actors, for example, make more than $50,000 a year. Less than 1%. And she said, I can tell you, all the ones who have exceeded that absolutely love acting. It's not just a job for them. It's not just a career. It's not about the celebrity. It is their gift, their craft. They can't not think of anything else but that. And I go, take that and go to any other industry, right? Let's take any other profession. Why are you doing it if you're not in love with it? Because I believe that whatever we do in life is meant to be an expression of love. Because guess what? Anybody who gets that work from me, whatever they do, they will be able to imprint that onto the work that they do.
Yeah. It's like that question that I got asked it recently of, like, what do you do for a living? And then they were like, if you had all the financial resources and everything that you could possibly want and desire, it was all just there, would you keep doing it? And of course, the majority of people, they're working a 9-to-5 because they have to pay the bills. Like, and that's okay, right? I mean, but once you start to declare, like, wait a minute, I think I understand what my purpose is, and I actually am leaning into what fuels the fire in me. You're 100% right. And I always laugh because it's the phrase where it's like, if you love what you do, you never work a day in your life. I was like, I love working out and I love helping people work out, but I still had to work really hard doing it, right? Like there's still work to be done, but you don't. Yes, it's still work, and yes, it's still hard work, but you are about it, right? It's fulfilling, and you're motivated for it.
I think what happens with that phrase is that your mind doesn't have to work as hard to remind you
what your driver is
doing,
yeah
right,
yeah.
what you're doing. So that, and what is this all tied to failure, is that when you hear this, when you find those things that light you up, you can see that the failure is not final. You will keep going, because that's all failure. Failure is only failure if you quit. And the only way to keep going is to start. You gotta find it, and I don't even like the term you gotta, but there's times where I say, make it your business to go about looking for something, even at your job. But if you don't like where you are right now, if you can't find the joy where you are right now, there's nowhere else you will go where you will find joy. I will say that. So you must begin where you are with what you have right now today to find joy. Then you'll be amazed at what starts to show up, because you're inviting everything into your life based on who you are. That's it, period.
Really quick, I did, and you don't have to necessarily share your why. If you would like to share your why, I would love to hear it. But I am curious as to when, do you know when you knew your why? Like, I'm assuming there was probably a moment where it was like, I figured it out.
So I don't know if I actually even knew my why until recently. It was back in 2013. I had left my corporate. I had a six-figure corporate job, base salary, right? 6 figures. I had a car allowance. It was $832 a month. Car allowance, and I didn't even have a car note because can't stand car notes, right? Yeah, bonuses put me into the high. I was doing exceptionally well. This is after 2 years prior, in 2011, I had been diagnosed with general anxiety disorder and suicidal ideations, because my fiance, only guy I ever loved and wanted to marry, had passed away, got diagnosed with something, and 2.5 months later, he was gone. And we were meant to relocate to Austin, Texas. And I went anyway. I didn't know anyone. And I was really good at working. I was raised in a lot of dysfunction and abuse and alcoholism. So I was really good at acting like things were awesome when they weren't. I had been taught how to master that as a child. And so at that point, when I realized I was not going to kill myself, I started taking trips up to Dallas area to visit my parents with my disabled younger sister. And I started noticing she was depressed. So I started bringing her down to visit me. And then we found Chris Cole Rehabilitation Center for Adults, where she went and got to live in the dorm for 9 months and hang out. And she was having all this fun. And I was standing in the kitchen getting ready to take her some snacks and treats to her and her dorm mates. And I knew that I was like, what are you going to do? Send her back to Dallas? Your parents don't even live on a bus. Like, where you can't send her back. Like, I just knew, like, I was like, oh my God, like, I got to do more. I'm meant to do more for my sister. So I took over the role as her caregiver. She stayed in Dallas. I had a 10-state territory, 80% travel job. She's disabled, really tenuous health, that if she goes in the hospital, she's got to have a relative at bedside. Otherwise, decisions will be made that are not good. So here I am traveling to places like Arkansas, where you can't even get a direct flight. So I'm in fear all the time that something could happen. So I gave 30 days notice. And I went to a women's networking meeting, and the woman talked about goals versus vision. And I realized I had been chasing goals, external accolades, achievements, acquisitions my entire life. And I had never focused on the vision of who I wanted to be. And that was in November of 2013. November 2013, that December, I did a vision board work party for the women at my church and my friends in our rec room. And I knew right then and there, and I never looked back, that I was meant to help people to ignite confidence and find joy and enthusiasm. And then the clarity And I still, those women to this day, you can contact any of them and they will tell you, Meshell changed your life. And I don't think I did much, right? But that became, I got known for doing vision boards. And then many of my clients were entrepreneurs and small business owners. So they started inviting me to talk about the principles that I was teaching through the vision boarding process, which now has become, unleashing your sales superpowers. And it all goes back. Everything I teach has always had the same thread. If you're not clear on who you are, it's value first. If you don't value who you are, you can't value anyone else, and you won't get to sell because you got commission breath, right? It's not about you. It's about you creating a pipeline of advocates and alliances and allies in life. And those become your clients and your referrers, and everything in life comes from other people. And if you're not clear on who you are, if you're not showing up as a gift, right, you're trying to get. Does anybody like when people take stuff from them? No, but everybody loves an unexpected gift. Guess what? Become the unexpected gift yourself and see what happens in your life.
I like that.
And that's what I basically teach people to do.
Can I coin that phrase? Do you want me to tell people that, and then I'll throw your name in there?
And put her at the bottom.
Yeah. I really like that. Be the unexpected gift. Man, I do appreciate you sharing that. I think I've touched a little bit on my story and stuff, but I had a moment, where I had to basically acknowledge, like, okay, well, I'm not going to kill myself. So it's like, all right, we're staying here for the long haul. Let's make it about something, right? And then of course you're like standing in the middle of this like empty field going, okay, but where do I start, right? Like, where do I go? I mean, literally there's no limitation. Pick a direction and go. And you're like, it'd be so much easier if I could just fly around, I did want to do two things really quick as we wrap up the episode. One, Megan, I did, everyone else has gotten to share their why. If you would like to share your why, you can. You absolutely do not have to. I am not putting you on the spot.
I mean, you totally are.
And moving on.
No, mine, I guess, is just to never stop creating, whether that's art or writing, something positive to put into the universe, or creating and improving relationships, myself. I just want to put more positive in than I take out. Yeah.
And that's great, because I know that it's out there, but I don't really, there are people who, the phrase, they just want to watch the world burn. Like, I really think that there's the whole thing. I think there's the whole thing of duality, right? Like,
some days I feel like that, but the majority of the time I want to create.
Yeah, there's like this what is it, the polarity of everything, right?
Yes, it's necessary. You wouldn't know pleasure without pain. You wouldn't know love without fear, right? So you've got to have evil for good to exist, that people tend to forget. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So I was just picturing, Megan's like, I want to put positivity in the world, and that's her mission, and I'm like, oh God, what's the other end of that look like, right? There's somebody sitting there who's like, I just want to put negativity out there. Oh no.
There probably is.
Hey, it is what it is sometimes. The other thing I wanted to do is give you just a quick opportunity, Meshell, of being able to maybe give our listeners maybe a piece of advice or something to ponder on, or even, maybe a quote that means something a lot to you. But I definitely wanted to give you an opportunity to kind of maybe like a final thought before we go to Megan's corner, where we talk about social media and all that fun stuff.
All that good stuff.
Yes. Well, thank you. I appreciate that. And thank you guys again. This is such an enriching and empowering conversation. And it's so spot on. Like, this was scheduled so far in advance, and for you guys to not even imagine the meaning that this conversation has had to me in my current situation is just, I'm so grateful to be here. And that is what I tell people. is I have this acronym that I'm really well known for, and it's BIG, right? We dream big, because the big dream actually is what ignites the gift that you are. Without it, you'd never find out who you are. In the face of challenges and circumstances and difficulties, when you play small, you'll respond and act and behave small. But when you set big, big dreams, it doesn't mean you'll land on the moon, but you will at least get into the stars. So, and how you start that is just your morning. Every morning, start with something that makes you grateful, ignites you, and inspires you. Put down the phone, because whatever you start your day with dictates the outcome of your day. If you look at social media, it will just make you insecure, because all you're looking at is everybody's highlight reels and lies, right? So, and if you look at your calendar, it's going to put you in scarcity of time. You're going to think you don't have enough time. You run out of time. You're running late. So it puts you in a sense of scarcity. And so when you actually start your day with something you're grateful for, it will start to expand. Gratitude is an expander, and you will actually start to see how big your world already is and how big it can become.
Man, I recently started this thing because I 100% agree and know that what you're speaking is the truth. And so, to like a fail safe, in case, you know, old habits die hard, right? If I pick up my phone first thing in the morning, right, there's before I can even click on anything and go anywhere, right there on my screen, after I unlock my phone, is literally like I call it my phone vision board, but it's really just like affirmations and gratitude.
Yes.
And so the goal ultimately is I want to make it to where I wake up and I spend the first 15 to 30 minutes of my day sitting with myself. And that's hard for me because my habit, since I can remember, is the way I get out of bed is there has to be like an urgency, right? Because it rips me out of the bed, and then I'm like running to the shower, I'm showering, and then I'm running to the car, and then I'm racing to the job, and then I'm right. And it's like throwing myself into motion and then just don't stop. That worked for me, you know, in my 20s, but in my 30s, I know I'm not going to make it. So being able to slow down, pump the brakes, and then hit the gas as needed. The mornings that I've been successful doing this, it's been great. And the mornings that I haven't been successful at this, I get to practice the opportunity of like, don't beat yourself up. So it's a win-win. It doesn't feel like a win-win sometimes, but like I agree with you. The morning routine will change the whole day.
It's a game changer. I have had a morning routine of so long, I can't remember when I didn't. I didn't keep track of the day, because that was one of the reasons I couldn't create a morning routine, because I was around a bunch of people who could tell you exactly to the day that they meditated. Like, I've been meditating every day for 8 years, 6 months, and 3 days, right? It was like, it was driving me crazy, because I just felt like I was so inadequate. And then I realized, oh, what's important to you? Well, the important thing to me is that I just don't break it, because the foothold of the 90% unconscious, as soon as you break it, it shreds you, right? So it's the consistency that creates the expansion. It's like compound interest in baking. If you want to get the unlimited, start tapping into the unlimited capacity of who you are, create a non-negotiable morning routine. And I promise you, it won't take but about 3 weeks before you start to go, your mind, the self-talk starts to talk to you in a favorable way. It's absolutely baffling what starts to happen when you set up a non-negotiable. Like, it's not even, I can't even imagine not doing it at this point. And that is actually a requisite of my clients. If they don't set up a non-negotiable morning routine, they will be let go. Because now I can't help you create the impossible. I only take on clients who want to create the impossible. And so I can't help you do that if you're not doing for you.
Yeah.
So little trick to the listeners.
This is one of those things where not only for myself, but I think everyone like listen to it, but then give it some time and then listen to it again, right? Like, say it louder for the people in the back. So I wanted to thank you again for not only the energy that you brought, right? Like I could tell genuinely that you were excited and about it. And I think I would say most people are, right? That's why they agree to come in on the show. But I really enjoyed our conversation. It's something that no matter how much I believe in it, I always love the reiteration of it. You know what I mean? The conversation of it, because it just, like, for the rest of the day, I guarantee you, I'm gonna have this like stupid smile on my face. I'm just gonna be like, life is great.
I know, me too.
yeah. I'm gonna be like, can't wait to work on my morning routine. Hey, what do you do?
To bed.
Yeah, what do you doing Friday night? I'm gonna work on my morning routine. I'm like, I am so excited, right? Well, so with that being said, I do want to give Megan's Corner a moment to speak about. There's this thing on the internet. It's something like social media, or something like that. I can't quite.
We'll add the addendum. Don't look at this when you wake up. Let your day start first. Then you can find us on social media at Friends of Failure.
Love it. Love it.
We'll also link Meshell as well. Make her easy to find if you want some confidence coaching. And then send us your emails. Get some stories to friendsoffailurepodcast@gmail.com.
I would really love some emails about people sharing their why, or even sharing how they got to their why.
Yes.
Who's going to accept the challenge, right?
That's the question.
And I think social media serves a purpose, and it can be good or bad. And when social media really started to change for me is when I utilized it as a tool to network and like meet people, right? And have conversations with people. I love having conversation. Maybe not with everyone. Sometimes there's the lack of connection, and that's not a bad thing, but you know what I'm saying? Like, when I started looking at it as a tool to embrace something that I genuinely enjoy. But the other thing was, you hear a lot of people say it about like Facebook, where it's like people are just complaining about the things going on in the world. But what happened is I started using Instagram, and I started changing the things that I was following to like, motivational quotes, or kind of, I call them self-development or self-improvement quotes, or, spirituality. And so now I mean, rarely am I getting the stuff that I'm not creating that feeling of lacking anymore. I'm creating the instigation of, oh man, like, okay, it's a reiteration, or, oh, I didn't think about it that way. Or, I use social media in a place where I still know it's a distraction. Like, I was delusional about that, and then I accepted it. I still use it as a distraction, but I'm trying to distract myself with stuff that kind of helps me reiterate my faith and belief in myself, right? So anyway, genuinely had a blast, and I hope everyone listening enjoyed the conversation today. And of course, I would love to leave you with our final, I guess, quote or a thought, which is, life is happening for you, not to you. So go out there and do something.
There we go.
Like, set a morning routine, please.
Yes.
Set a
Start there.
If it's not I'm stronger than you, it's I'm wiser than you, I'm more loving than you, I'm more tolerant than you, I'm more sophisticated than you. It doesn't matter what it is, but this constant competition is going on. This is the secret. This is the secret. You can't make a mistake.